What's going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I am bringing you an updated Madolche deck profile for post Burst of Destiny. Burst of Destiny has been such a blast with its release, breathing new life into so many different decks, and Madolche is a deck that has gotten so much power in such a short period of time that I feel like it's gone from a rogue contender to possibly breaking into the meta in a very strong way. I haven't seen a lot of people test the deck as much, but it definitely has gotten a lot of power in the form of the Megatons and Burst of Destiny. Currently, the card that I think in Burst of Destiny that helps this deck the most is Small World. It's something I've seen a few people try, but not everyone's on, but I think it's a very powerful card in this deck because Madolche has a couple of key weaknesses that I think are solved by the card, and I'll sort of explain that as I go through the deck profile. And don't worry if you don't have Crossout Designators, Small Worlds, or any cards that are maybe a little bit expensive in this profile. I'll definitely give budget options at the end, so stay tuned for that. And before we hop into the deck profile, Discord link down below. We are growing our Discord, trying to get our community to be night and just have a good environment, I guess, to hang out and talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! And we're trying to do things on maybe Sundays, we don't know the day for sure yet, where we play maybe Edison games or duels with subscribers. So if you want a community to hang out with, or maybe just want to play with me and Patty and whoever else is on the channel, feel free to check out the Discord down below. And without further ado, let's get into the Madolche deck profile. Alright, so starting with the Madolche monsters, we're starting off with our main starter, 3 Magdalene. And Magdalene is a great starter because she is a Stratos on normal summon, and she can search whatever Madolche piece you need, which depends whether you have Salon or not, and how many monsters are in your graveyard. Most of the time is going to be searching Petting Cessor, which allows you to get into your Pudding Cess and go full combo. And Magdalene just a great starter for searching her and then getting an additional extender on board or additional material for whatever you may need. So definitely going to max out 3 Magdalene because, again, 1-card starters are very, very powerful. Then we have 3 Angeli, our next starter, and she is another one you want to maximize because she is, again, full combo. You want to see some of these cards, and Angeli is really good because it doesn't care how many monsters are in your graveyard, and she's definitely a fantastic combo piece as well because you usually use her to put not only a monster in grave but grab your Hoot Cake. And then we are playing 3 Petting Cessor as well because she is the powerhouse starter of the deck. If you control no monsters in your graveyard, that was a weird way to phrase it. If you have no monsters in your graveyard, you can special summon her from hand, and then when she's special summoned, you can special summon a Madolche monster from deck, lowering its level by 1, but then you're locked into Madolche. So this gets your 1 Pudding Cess, and then you can go into your rank 4 play and go full combo from there. And these are your starters in the deck. Well, not Pudding Cess, but Petting Cessor, Angeli, and Magdalene. These are the cards you want to see because they are your starter plays. And Hoot Cake, which I'll get to in a second, can also be a starter. It just depends on if you went first or second and what's in your hand. And that's what I'm saying, when Madolche starters are very good, but they don't always work exactly how you want them to. So you have to play very careful in Madolche. Madolche is a deck that actually takes quite a bit of thinking, and the combos aren't exactly as intuitive as some other decks, but they are very, very powerful, and that is what I love about the Madolches. Next up, we have the 2 Hoot Cake, a very, very important piece, not only because he just always has been for being a beast and getting a special summon from your deck, usually Mess and Gelato. It's also very important for Small World, the new addition to this deck profile, because he is a level 3 and therefore can match with pretty much every other Madolche, which is very, very important. And it helps you link whichever starter you opened to the starter you actually want, and that is something very, very important. And I think Hoot Cake might actually jump up to 3. I've just played it at 2 for so long, I don't know if I'm comfortable moving it to 3 yet, but after some more testing, this may be bumped up to 3 just for the Small World ratios. But right now it is 2 Hoot Cake, very important combo piece. And then lastly for the Madolche monsters is 2 Mess and Gelato. Pretty much the most important card in the deck. Well, that's a hard statement to argue, but he is very important for searching your spells and traps, and he is the one you want to special summon while you control a beast monster as many times in a turn as possible to make sure you get your Salon, your Chateau, your Ticket, and your Promenade. Those are just such important pieces for making sure your board looks how it's supposed to at the end phase, and this is the real card you just do not want to draw in your opening hand. And that's one of the reasons this is actually a 42 card list, and I think Madolche is a deck that can actually go above 40 very easily, especially with the addition of Small World, because you just don't want to draw certain cards and you want to keep your consistency as high as possible. So adding Small World keeps your consistency up while you're drawing your bricks less. So that is a very nice thing, and you just really don't want to draw Mess and Gelato, but it's not unplayable if you do. It's not like he's a Colt Wing or something that really interferes with your combo too much. You just don't get your searches, and it's a little your end board's a little weaker. But that is it for the Madolche monsters. Alright, now on to the hand traps, or the like designator targets. The only hand trap we're playing at 3, and that's because we're playing it as a hand trap, is D-Shifter. D-Shifter is so ridiculous in Madolche because it's one of the few decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! That can actually recycle it and use it multiple times because of Glass Souffle. You can actually use this at the end of your combo and then put him in graveyard and then chain your Glass Souffle, putting a Madolche in graveyard, and then you can actually return the monsters to the deck or your hand if you have Chateau, and then D-Shifter comes back to hand. It is very disgusting, and it is just so good. And D-Shifter in Madolches is so powerful. Now, this card can actually interrupt your combos. Like, playing through a D-Shifter in Madolche isn't always the easiest. You have to opt for more safe combos where you don't banish like all your resources, because especially Hoot Cake, you can't really get a monster in grave if like your opponent D-Shiftered you, and you just don't want to lose everything to the grave or like get banished. But D-Shifter is also very good in the fact that it is a hand trap that can just put itself in graveyard at any time. So especially with Madolche Hoot Cake, you can just like activate D-Shifter, summon Hoot Cake, and go into your combo. So that is something very good about D-Shifter, and he's the only one we're running at 3 because he is just that powerful. Plus, he just wins games on his own. It's such a high impact hand trap, and that's why we are going to maximize it. Then we have the one of hand traps. We have Ash Blossom. I know this might look a little weird because it's Ash and she's at 1, but I will explain. 1 Bell, 1 Effect Veiler. These hand traps are also doing double duty, so I'll explain that too once I get through these. 1 Artifact Lancia, 1 Nibiru, and 1 Infinite Impermanent. So these are all one-ofs, and it looks like, on the surface, it looks mostly just because of Crossout Designator. Like, you're using them as one-of targets so that they don't affect your combo if you open the Crossout, and that's why the ratios are like this. And while that's mostly true, and it's a space issue, hand traps like these 4 that go to grave are very weird in Madolche because of Petting Cessor. Like, if you have to use these on your opponent's turn if they went first, sometimes Petting Cessor goes from being a starter to not being a starter, which can make Magdalene not be a starter, and then you've gone down this rabbit hole that is not great. So sometimes hand traps like these are rough. However, they do have the plus side of being very broken with Madolche Chateau, so give and take there. Another thing these hand traps are doing is actually being small world targets. So like, say you draw Nibiru and small world, you can actually Nibiru search Artifact Lancia, or not search it, but show Artifact Lancia from your deck, and then Lancia can search any fairy Madolche, which would be Petting Cessor and Jelly, and then Nibiru turns into a starter. I believe you can also do this with Effect Veiler linked to Lancia, and so forth. And then if you draw Lancia, I think you can link to Veiler, and then go into Magdalene. So Small World has a bunch of different things you can do with these hand traps, which is very important. So these hand traps are doing double duty as, well, I guess triple duty. I mean, they're the hand traps you want to see sometimes, as well as being crossout targets, as well as being Small World targets. So very important to play, I guess, these amount of hand traps. That's why we're maining a Lancia, apart from it being just like such a dominating hand trap in this meta, in my opinion. So yeah, these are the hand traps or crossout targets we are playing. Alright, on to spells. We have the 3 Madolche Salon. We're going to start with our Madolche spells. Salon's just generically the best one. 1 Chateau and 1 Ticket. I guess saying it's the best one is a little stretch because they're all very important. Salon's just the one you want to like open because it's an extender in the fact that you get an additional normal summon, which makes Magdalene super good, especially if you already have like a hand trap engraved, because Magdalene can then search Angeli and you can normal summon it, or Hoot Cake, whichever you prefer. And then Chateau and Ticket are absolutely mandatory. You're going to search these off of your Messenger Lotto, and that's why they are one-ofs, or you can set them off of your Salon. So they're just always searchable, and you don't really want to draw them, and that's why they take the one-off slot. These are your 5 Madolche spells. You don't always want to open them because they can be very hard bricks, but they are so pivotal to the deck that you have to play them, and I feel the most limited ratios possible, which looks a little like this. Next up, the consistency spells, and that's going to be the 3 Pot of Prosperity and the 2 Small World, which is the brand new addition to this deck, and I think one of the decks that will find Small World to be its home. If we want to read the brand new card real quick, it says reveal 1 monster in your hand, choose 1 monster from your deck that has exactly 1 of the same type, and then the types are listed, and then you show a monster from your deck that lists that type, and then you add 1 monster that has 1 type of the monster you show. Reading this card for the first time is actually a nightmare, but once you understand what it does, essentially like what I said earlier, Lancia is a fairy, so it can search a fairy as long as it shares no other types, and Nibiru only shares light with Lancia. So essentially you can use, let's say, reveal Messengelato in your hand, who is absolutely just a terrible brick you don't want to see. And then you can show Hootcake in your deck. And then you can banish both of those because they only share one type, being Earth. And then you can add Petting Cessor from your deck to hand. And that is how Small World essentially works, is it's gonna make your bricks turn into plays. And it can also, like say you have a monster engrave and Petting Cessor isn't a starter anymore, you can go Petting Cessor, banish, reveal Hootcake, banish, add Angeli. So it helps you get the correct starter as well as find a starter, and that is where Small World is just fantastic in this deck. Absolutely phenomenal card. And Prosperity, of course, is your like go-to consistency card in this deck. You don't really do any drawing. I'm a little worried to play Extravagance. Extravagance is something you can play in this deck and something many people have done. I'm just always worried I'm going to banish all of my Glass Soufflés or all of my Sistarts or all of my Tiramisu's, because your extra deck's very, very important. And sure, you can maximize 3 of all of them and hope you don't get banished, but I feel Prosperity is the better card. However, if you do not have access to Prosperity, Extravagance is a fine substitute. You're just going to have to change your extra deck a little. But Small World, absolutely phenomenal addition to the deck, and I feel like it is one of the decks that plays Small World the best. Like this, Virtual World, Gren Maju, like Small World, fantastic addition, and I'm so excited to play with the card in this deck in particular. On to the I Hate Hand Trap package, because Madolche had 2 glaring weaknesses, and that was the starter issue, which Small World helped fix, and the hand trap issue, which is now sort of solved because of Crossout Designator. Being able to negate Nibiru and, you know, whatever hand trap will affect you, it is just so powerful, as well as this card being able to negate things like Prosperity and Tactics and other cards you so happen to be running. This card coming out means you don't really have to play Herald of Orange Light anymore, which was a great card with the Glass Souffle and Chateau, but if you draw it going second with no other fairy, it's an absolute brick. It messes up your Petting Cessor. There were a lot of downsides of the card to go with the upsides, and Crossout almost has no downsides. It is just so fantastic, and while it may not have the ceiling Herald of Orange Light does, it is overall just so much better for the consistency of the deck, and I want to maximize it at 3, but it is a card I can see being a 2 of in the future. 2, Triple Tactics Talent. This card is just phenomenal going first or second. I feel it is one of the best cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! And yeah, it's just a fantastic card. It helps you play through hand traps, look at your opponent's hand. You know, the draw 2 is very nice as long as you have an activated Prosperity, as well as take your opponent's monsters, which is just so good for clearing threats like Dragoon, which isn't a huge problem for this deck, but I mean, if you take it, it's probably game. Just an absolutely phenomenal all-star card. And then 1, Called by the Grave, because it's probably the most versatile card in Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's a card that many people hope to be banned, and some people vehemently beg for it not to be. I mean, it's just such a powerful Saki 1-of, right? So we're definitely playing Called by the Grave, and yeah, this is our I Hate Hand Traps package, essentially. And to round off the deck list, we have the 2 Promenade and the 1 Madolche Knights, which I don't run in every list, but I'm testing now because I feel like the deck is so much more consistent with these additions. We can play the additional like Trap Brick and get the like higher power ceiling by having it in our deck. It's a fantastic card. Like, Knights is essentially a free monster negate as long as you set it up right. And sometimes you open Promenade and you want to search a trap, and like searching another trap or searching another Promenade is useless. So Knights is just more versatility for your Madolche Messengelato. Now, you can run things like Gozen Match in this deck because you're all Earth. There's a couple of other good Floodgates you can run, but I'm not choosing to main deck the Floodgates. Gozen Match is something I definitely recommend siding for how powerful it is in this match, or against other decks, and while it hurts this deck very little. So yeah, that's a side deck option. It's something you can main. I am just choosing not to. Budget options for like Crossouts, which isn't super expensive, but it is not in everyone's budget. So cards like Tactics and Crossout, I think you can replace with things like Herald of Orange Light per se, or additional hand traps, because those are going to halt your opponent's plays. And you know, even if your plays get stopped, you can draw hand traps which will stop your opponent plays. And yeah, it's just very powerful. Like more Nibiru's can be something you go for. More trap cards like the Gozen Match I just mentioned. Small World is brand new. Now, there's no card that really replaces its consistency, but again, you can substitute with more traps. Or, you know, even cards like Upstart Goblin if you're like not running Prosperity. But yeah, those are a couple of options. I think traps and hand traps are just the best way to go if you do not have access to these cards. Now on to the extra deck, which the Madolche extra deck is pretty standard. You really run the Madolche stuff, and then there's a bunch of flex spots so you can run almost anything. So yeah, I'm playing 2 of each Madolche monster, which is 2 Sistart, 2 Glass Souffle, 2 Tiramisu, and 2 Chocolate a la Mode. These, I'm playing at 2 because I'm not running Extravagant, so I technically get 7 free spots to play, which I mean, it almost means nothing, but I just don't want to play Extravagance because I'm worried about banishing any 3 of these. But yeah, these are mandatory and it's pretty much all you're going to make, but you do get to run some other cards that could come up. And I am currently running Baguska Honorary Plan B, just in case things go terribly, terribly south, and this is a good card. And I'm also playing a Gagaga Cowboy because time is a real win condition, so if there's 2 minutes on the clock and you went first and you didn't use Petting Cessor, burn 800, pass, probably game, so Cowboy is just amazing. I am not recommending you stall in time, by the way, I'm just saying it's a great win condition in time. Abyss Dweller, I think if you're playing rank 4 in anything, Abyss Dweller is definitely a go-to that you can run. And then we are running Zeus, who's actually pretty much mandatory in this deck. Him and the Madolche monsters are essentially the mandatory cards. I mean, like, you can make a Tiramisu, overlay like a Chocolate a la Mode, and that's a 4 material Zeus, right? Because Chocolate a la Mode actually makes Zeus super good, being the additional material off any Madolche Xyz. So yeah, Zeus just makes a lot of sense in this deck, and he is a powerhouse of a card. Then I'm running 1 Nightmare Phoenix. If I need a generic link 2 for whatever reason, or they give me like a Contact C, this is something I can go into. So I mean, yeah, I guess Nightmare Phoenix is a cool run if you have the space. And then I'm running a Omega and a Fossil Warrior Skull Knight. So we have a lot of Dogmatica at our locals recently. It's been picking up more steam, I guess, with the Megaton reprints, and as well as people wanting to play decks with Maximus. And these are Maximus targets, essentially. You don't have to play these. You can run whatever you want, like a 3rd class Souffle I highly recommend. But the reason I'm playing these as Maximus targets over something like Natisse or whatever good cards like Mechaba with Nova is these can banish themselves very easily. So if my opponent Maximus's first turn, I can send Fossil Warrior Skull Knight and Omega, and I can like banish to pop or remove them from my graveyard so that Petting Cessor is once again a starter card. And that is why I'm playing these, is because they can very quickly leave my graveyard, which I find to be very, very important. So that is why these are my Maximus targets over something else. And that is going to do it for the deck profile. If you want to see combos, I do have a combo video that I will link in the description down below, because, you know, this deck, again, the combos aren't super intuitive. I will show, I guess, like a new combo video eventually, but the combos in this deck didn't actually change with Burst of Destiny. Like, Small World doesn't make your combos any different, besides if you banish a Hoot Cake and a Messenger Lotto and you just don't have both as an option anymore. But yeah, this is, you know, combo video down below is essentially what I'm saying. But if you did enjoy this deck profile, leave a like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment what you think of Madolche, how you're running it, if you're running Small World or not, or what you think of the card. Yeah, I'd love to hear it. So hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Aaron from Top Tier Gaming. Bye, YouTube.